It was a busy Monday morning in downtown Manhattan. The city buzzed with energy. Honking horns, fast-talking pedestrians, and the hurried footsteps of people chasing their next deadline. Inside the tallest glass building, the air was cooler, calmer, but equally intense. That's where Tahir was. Cold, sharp, and untouchable. Alexander Reed, CEO of Reed Enterprises. Everyone in the building called him Mr. Reed. Never Alex, never casually. His presence alone was enough to silence a room. Smart, powerful, and always in control. That morning, he stepped out of his private elevator, phone in hand, eyes glued to a financial report. Meetings lined up back to back. Another typical day, or so he thought, until he saw her. A tiny figure stood in the grand marble lobby, completely out of place among all the sharp suits and hurried adults. She couldn't have been more than 5. 2 ponytails tied with pink ribbons, little sparkly shoes, and a princess backpack slung over one shoulder. Her wide brown eyes locked onto his face with laser focus. Before anyone could react, the little girl ran straight toward him. "Daddy!" The word echoed through the lobby like a fire alarm. Everyone stopped. The receptionist froze. The security guard blinked in confusion. Even the woman by the coffee cart turned around mid-pour. But Alexander Reed, he just stood there, staring, as if the entire building had just disappeared, and it was only him and this little girl left in the world. He had no kids. That much he knew for sure. The little girl reached his legs, wrapping her small arms around him with the kind of affection that couldn't be faked. "Daddy, I missed you." Silence. For a few seconds, he didn't move. Couldn't. His mind searched for explanations. Is this a mistake? A publicity stunt? A prank? But her voice? That voice calling him, "Daddy!" It shook something deep inside him. Something he couldn't quite name. A young woman came running through the lobby, breathless, panic in her eyes. "Lila!" she called out. "Sweetheart, wait!" The girl looked up at Alexander with a smile that could melt ice. "Mommy, I found him!" The woman stopped in her tracks. Her eyes met Alexander's, and her face went pale. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Mr. Reed," she whispered. It hit him then. Recognition. Barely. Like a memory buried under years of boardrooms and business deals. Her name surfaced slowly. Emma. They'd met once. Years ago. One night. A mistake. Or at least, that's what he'd told himself back then. But now here she was, standing in front of him with a child who looked too much like him to ignore. "Emma," he said, voice low, unsure. "What is this?" Emma took Lila's hand and gently pulled her away from him. "I'm sorry." She didn't mean to cause a scene. Lila frowned. "But Mommy, you said he's my daddy." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Alexander's world, always neat, always controlled, had just been cracked open by the tiny voice of a little girl he'd never met, but couldn't deny. He couldn't stop staring at her. The same dark eyes, the same arch of the brow, even the same stubborn pout he gave during board meetings. His heart started pounding in a way that made no sense. This couldn't be real. Emma cleared her throat. "I didn't come here for this. It was an accident. She got away from me." But Alexander didn't believe her. Something in her voice trembled, like she was holding back more than just an apology. "You can't just show up here with a child and walk away," he said, his voice harder than he intended. "I didn't plan this, Alex," she replied sharply, eyes suddenly fiery. "You didn't want anything to do with me back then, so I raised her alone." The tension in the air turned thick, and the people in the lobby pretended not to watch, though every pair of eyes was discreetly on them. He stepped closer. "Is she mine?" Emma didn't answer. She looked down at Lila, who was still holding tight to her hand, confused by the strange silence between her parents. "I think we should talk somewhere private," Emma finally said, her voice soft again. Alexander nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling. His mind was racing. What did this mean for him? For his carefully built empire? For the life he'd crafted without room for complications? Could it be true? And if it was? What now? They moved toward the private elevator, Emma hesitating slightly, unsure if this was the right decision. As the door slid shut behind them, Lila reached up and touched Alexander's hand. "Daddy," she said again, more quietly this time. "Can I show you my drawings later?" Something in him cracked. Just a little. Just enough. He didn't say yes. But he didn't pull away either. In the penthouse office above the city, behind tinted glass and polished steel, the CEO of Reed Enterprises was about to face the one deal he hadn't seen coming. And this time, there was no strategy, no boardroom, no contract to fall back on. Only a little girl who called him daddy, and a woman from his past who held the answers he never thought he'd need. But just as Emma was about to speak, Alexander's phone buzzed. An emergency alert, something big and very dangerous. Emma's expression shifted, serious, worried, and suddenly it was clear. This wasn't just about a daughter and a father. Something else was going on. Something neither of them was ready to say out loud yet. And whatever it was coming fast. Alexander stared at the alert flashing on his phone, but his eyes kept drifting back to the little girl, now spinning slowly in his leather office chair, humming a tune with zero care for the chaos she'd just caused. Emma stood near the window, arms crossed, her expression guarded, distant. She wasn't the same woman he'd known that one summer night years ago. That Emma had been soft, wild, laughing at everything. This Emma had tired eyes and a quiet strength that unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. He slipped the phone into his pocket. Whatever the emergency was, it would have to wait, because in front of him stood the biggest crisis of his life, and she was currently asking if she could get juice. "Emma," he said carefully, "I need the truth. Is she really mine?" Emma didn't answer right away. She watched Lila for a moment, her gaze softening. Then she turned back to him. "Yes." One word. It hit him like a punch to the chest, the kind of blow that made everything tilt. He sat down slowly, trying to process it. "I wanted to tell you," Emma continued. "But when I found out I was pregnant, you were gone. You made it clear we were a one-night mistake. I didn't want to chase someone who didn't want to be chased." Alexander remembered. He'd been a different man then. Cold, focused only on business. After that night, he'd left without looking back. Not because she didn't matter. He'd told himself that. But because she had. And that terrified him. She'd made him feel something real, something dangerous. For a man like him. And now? He asked, voice low. "Why come now?" Emma hesitated. Because she deserves to know. She started asking questions. About her father. I told her what I could. And then, she took a deep breath. "Then I found out something. Something I think you need to know." He frowned. "What do you mean?" Emma stepped forward, lowering her voice. "There's someone watching us. Following me. I think it has something to do with Lila. She's not just special to me, Alex. There's something about her. I can't explain it. But people are interested. Dangerous people." He stood immediately. "Why didn't you go to the police?" "I did. They brushed it off as paranoia. Said I didn't have proof. And you think coming to me will fix it? I didn't know where else to go. And honestly, I thought maybe you'd slam the door in my face. But Lila wanted to find you. She's been drawing your face for months. And I didn't even show her a photo. It's like she just knew. Alexander looked at the little girl again. Lila had stopped spinning. She was now watching him with wide eyes, as if she was waiting for him to say something that would change everything. His stomach twisted. He was a businessman. He dealt with facts, logic, numbers, but nothing about this was logical. And yet, it felt more real than anything he'd known. Have you noticed anything else strange? He asked Emma. Besides being followed, Emma nodded slowly. Sometimes, lights flicker around her. She hears things I don't. She talks about people she's never met. I thought I was going crazy. But then I started doing research. There are stories, rumors, about kids like her, gifted, marked. He didn't like where this was going. It sounded too close to something out of a conspiracy novel. You think she's what? Some kind of chosen one? Emma gave a half smile. I don't know what she is. I just know she's not ordinary. And someone out there knows it too. Suddenly, the lights in the office flickered. Just once, but long enough to make them all freeze. Alexander turned to his desk and quickly checked the security feed. For a moment, all the screens glitched, static and black. Then, back to normal. He didn't say anything, but Emma saw it too. Lila, still calm, said quietly, "They're coming, Mummy." That chilled him more than anything. "Who's coming, sweetheart?" Emma asked gently, kneeling beside her. Lila tilted her head. "The men with black eyes, the ones who whisper. I see them in my dreams. They want to take me away." Alexander's pulse jumped. Has she said this before? Emma nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to believe it, but last week, someone tried to break into our apartment. They didn't take anything, just stood outside her bedroom door. I saw the footprints." Alexander didn't hesitate. He picked up the phone and called his head of security. "Locks, down the building. No one comes in or out without my clearance. Get extra eyes on every floor and send someone to my office, now." He hung up and looked at Emma. "You're not leaving here tonight, but I'll get a team to check your place. I'll make sure you're protected. You came to me, and now this is my problem. You and Lila, you're under my care. Now." Emma's eyes welled up, just for a second. But she blinked it away. "You always were a little dramatic," she whispered. He allowed a hint of a smile. "And you always thought you could handle everything on your own." Their eyes locked again, the weight of unspoken history hanging between them. Just then, a sudden crash outside the office door made them both jump. The security feed blinked again. Lila stood up, completely calm. "They're closer now." Alexander reached for his emergency button under the desk. Before he could press it, the door burst open, and one of his security guards stumbled in, blood on his forehead. "They're in the building," he gasped. "Sir, they're not human." Emma pulled Lila close, shielding her. Alexander stood in front of them both, heart pounding. The polished walls of his empire meant nothing now, because something far bigger than money, power, or reputation was coming for them. And he was no longer just a CEO. He was a father, and he'd do anything to protect them. Even if the entire world turned against him, Alexander didn't even flinch. The second his guard collapsed to the floor, he moved fast, hit the silent alarm, locked the office doors, and reached for the emergency panel in the wall. Behind it was a steel compartment he'd never thought he'd need. But tonight, everything had changed. The man who once ruled boardrooms and corporate deals, was now staring down something far beyond spreadsheets and stock markets. Emma held Lila tightly, her breath shaky. "Alex, what does he mean not human?" "I don't know," he said truthfully, pulling a sleek device from the compartment and tapping the screen. "But whoever they are, they're not walking out with her." The cameras blinked again, only for a second, but this time, when they came back on, two figures were standing in the hallway. Tall, dressed in black, their eyes completely dark. No whites, no pupils, just pitch black, like bottomless pits. Lila looked up at them through the screen and whispered, "They followed me from my dreams." A chill ran through the room. Alexander's security team was good, but they weren't prepared for this. One by one, the feeds showed his men going down. Silently. No screaming, no fight, just disappearing into shadows. Emma clutched Lila tighter. "We have to get out," Alexander nodded. "There's a hidden elevator in this room. It leads to the underground parking. From there, we can take the tunnel exit." He pressed a hidden panel behind his desk, and the wall shifted open. The sleek elevator waited in silence. But just as they stepped in, the lights flickered again, and this time stayed out. Everything went dark. In the silence, Lila's voice rang out clear. "They're already here." Suddenly the elevator shook violently. Emma screamed. Alexander grabbed them both, steadying them. The doors started to close, but then stopped, halfway. Through the narrow gap, one of the black-eyed figures appeared. No emotion, no sound, just a slow tilting of the head, and then it stepped forward. And just when it seemed like there was no way out, Lila stepped forward. Calm, small hands glowing with soft, golden light. "Stop," she said gently. The shadow paused. The whole building seemed to freeze. Then she spoke again. "You're not allowed here. Go back." A shockwave of light burst from her hands. Not violent, but powerful, like a warm wind. It pushed the figure back, out of sight. The lights in. The building came back on. The cameras cleared. Everything went still. Emma stared at her daughter in disbelief. Alexander just stood frozen. Lila turned to them, blinking like nothing had happened. "They can't hurt us anymore. Not if we're together." Later, in the safety of a secluded safe house outside the city, the truth slowly unfolded. Lila had always been special. Emma had suspected it for years, but she never knew just how special until that night. Lila wasn't just a child with strange dreams. She was something ancient, a seer, born once every few generations, able to see and command things from beyond the physical world. Entities drawn to her light had been watching since she was born. Alexander listened quietly, processing everything. He felt like a man who had stepped into a world he never believed in. But looking at Lila, his daughter, there was no more doubt. She was extraordinary, and somehow she had chosen to find him. "Why me?" he asked one evening, gently stroking her hair. "Why did you come looking for me?" Lila smiled sleepily. "Because I saw you in my dreams. I knew you'd protect us." That simple answer undid him completely. In the weeks that followed, life changed for all of them. Alexander resigned from his CEO position. He moved quietly, pulled strings from behind the curtain, and used his resources to build a safe life for his new family. Emma, for the first time in years, didn't have to look over her shoulder. And Lila, she grew stronger, more aware, but never lost her innocence. She still asked for juice, still loved cartoons, and still giggled when her parents kissed in front of her. Their little family wasn't normal, but it was real. And in the quiet moments, when Emma and Alexander sat together, watching Lila chase fireflies in the garden. They both knew this was meant to be. Not every story begins with love. Some begin with surprise, some with fear. But the best ones, they begin when you least expect them. Like a little girl standing at the top of a glass tower, smiling up at a stranger and saying, "Hi, Daddy."